Hey y'all, tonight we're slipping into the sandals of a Pompeiian on the last morning of their life. Imagine the smell of fresh baked bread mixing with the metallic tang of fear sweat as the ground shivers beneath your feet. You probably won't survive this, but hey, at least your corpse will become a fantastic museum exhibit someday. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. Let's see how far these whispers of ash travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first tremor hits at dawn, subtle as a lover's sigh. You roll off your straw-stuffed mattress, knees cracking against the cool mosaic floor. Outside, the public fountain gurgles like it's choking on yesterday's wine. A dog barks 3 streets over, not the "what's that noise" bark, but the "I've smelled death before" howl. You shrug it off. Earthquakes are as common here as bad politicians in Rome, right? Just last month, old Unease swore his olive jars danced a jig during the night shakes. You splash water on your face from a clay basin, the liquid lukewarm and gritty. Breakfast is yesterday's bread dipped in vinegar wine, the crust so hard it could chip a tooth. Across the courtyard, your neighbor's slave scrubs a fresco of Priapus with a vigor that'd make the fertility god blush. The paint's still fresh from repairs after the big quake 17 years back, the one that flattened the Temple of Jupiter and left half the forum looking like a drunk god's toy box. The market beckons. You step into sunlight, filtered through a haze you can't quite name. Vesuvius looms in the distance, its slopes lush with vineyards. Perfectly safe, the wine merchant crooned yesterday. Best grapes in Campania grow in volcanic soil. You're halfway to the fish stalls when the second tremor hits. A roof tile smashes beside you, spraying terracotta shrapnel. The air tastes like struck flint. "Just Vesuvius farting again," laughs a butcher, waving a fly-swarmed haunch of meat. His shop reeks of garum, that fermented fish sauce Romans pour on everything like it's ketchup. You force a chuckle, but your sandals stick to the street, not from spilled wine, you realize. The ground's sweating warm water through cracks in the stone. At the baths, the attendant rubs you down with strigil and oil. Extra crocodile dung exfoliant for that glowing complexion. You're picking pumice grit from your elbow creases when the third tremor rattles the hypocaust. Steam hisses through floor vents as bathers scramble, towels clutched like sacred vestments. A fresco of Neptune cracks diagonally, the sea god now wielding a trident through his own forehead. Back home, you eye the Lararium shrine. The household gods seem to lean away from Vesuvius. "We rebuilt after 62, you mutter, arranging figs on an offering plate. What's one more shake? But the incense smoke curls into strange shapes. A column, a cloud, before dissolving. As noon approaches, the baker's oven belches ash that clings to your tongue. You spit, tasting tomorrow. The forum buzzes with morning commerce as you navigate between wine amphoras and bleeding goats. A fishmonger hawks his catch, mullets so fresh their scales still shimmer like scattered coins. You haggle over garum prices while sulfur tickles your nostrils. Must be the tanneries, you think, though the leather workshops closed for repairs after last week's tremors. The vendor's hands shake as he weighs your purchase, spilling fermented fish sauce across marble that once gleamed white as Venus's thighs. A street performer juggles flaming torches near the temple of Apollo, his routine punctuated by nervous glances skyward. Children chase a leather ball between the columns, their laughter echoing off cracked walls. You remember when those cracks weren't there, before the earth decided to redecorate half the city. The ball bounces toward a fissure in the pavement, steam rising like the breath of buried titans. Earthquake weather, mutters an old woman selling Lucky Charms. Her stall displays bronze phalluses, owl feathers, and chunks of what she claims is genuine Etruscan lightning glass. You'd normally scoff, but today her inventory seems oddly practical. She presses a small amulet into your palm, warm to the touch, though it's been sitting in shade. For the shaking times, she whispers, refusing payment. The public latrine offers its usual social gathering. Romans treat bathroom breaks like board meetings, discussing everything from gladiator betting odds to the emperor's latest tax hikes. Today's conversation centers on Vesuvius. My grandfather said it breathed fire once, claims a wool merchant, adjusting his toga around his knees. Before the Greeks came, before anyone kept records. Historians still argue whether Vesuvius had erupted in living memory, but your grandfather's grandfather might have witnessed something spectacular. You pause at the bakery where Modestus needs tomorrow's bread. His ovens burn hotter than usual, not by choice, he explains, but because the wood keeps igniting before he lights it. Strangest thing, he mutters, flour dusting his sweaty forearms. Even the dough rises faster today. Behind him, loaves crack in geometric patterns, steam escaping like tiny screams. A procession of priests shuffles past, carrying offerings to Jupiter's damaged temple. Their faces wear the practiced serenity of men who've memorized every prayer for divine intervention. One drops his ceremonial knife. It clatters against stone with a sound like breaking bones. When he bends to retrieve it, you notice his hands trembling worse than autumn leaves. The gladiator school's training yard echoes with wooden sword strikes. Even here, where men practice dying for entertainment, something feels different. The fighters move with desperate intensity, as if sensing their audience might be larger than usual today. A net fighter stumbles during a routine drill, his weighted net tangling around his own ankles. Clumsy as a Gaul, his trainer barks, but you catch the worry creasing his weathered features. Near the city gates, a merchant caravan prepares for departure. Their camels snort and paw the ground, refusing to move despite whips and curses. Animals know things humans forget, like when the earth plans to split open and swallow cities whole. The caravan master counts his losses, abandoning the journey until the beasts recover their senses. You buy honey cakes from a vendor whose cart tilts precariously on uneven stones. The sweet pastry crumbles between your teeth, but underneath lurks a bitter aftertaste, like ash mixed with fear. The bathhouse attendant scrubs your back with pumice while discussing his weekend plans. Taking the family to Herculaneum tomorrow, he chatters, working soap into your shoulder blades. Wife wants to visit her sister before the grape harvest. You nod politely, though something about his casual optimism makes your stomach clench. Around you, other bathers soak in pools fed by springs that bubble warmer than usual. A detail everyone mentions, but no one questions. A group of merchants debates shipping routes over wine and olives. Vesuvius makes the best soil in Campania, declares a trader whose purple striped toga screams, new money. My vineyards produce twice what my father's did in Latium. His companions murmur agreement while nervously eyeing the mountain through the bathhouse windows. One mentions his slaves reported glowing spots on the slopes last night, but the conversation quickly shifts to safer topics like chariot racing and tax evasion. The irony would be hilarious if it weren't so tragic. Romans living in the shadow of what we now know is one of history's most dangerous volcanoes. Yet most Pompeians didn't even realize Vesuvius was a volcano. To them, it was simply a mountain blessed by Bacchus, its fertile slopes perfect for growing grapes. The concept of dormant volcanoes hadn't entered popular consciousness. If a mountain wasn't actively spewing fire, it was just a mountain. You dress and wander toward the gladiator barracks, where fighters practice their death dances with unusual intensity. A Thracian gladiator stumbles during a routine maneuver, his wooden sword clattering across sand that feels gritty between your toes. Not the usual arena sand, but something finer, more powdery. The trainer barks corrections while unconsciously wiping ash from his eyes. At the theater, actors rehearse a comedy about bumbling gods. Their timing feels off today, lines delivered with distracted urgency. The lead actor forgets his cue twice, staring past the empty seats toward Vesuvius. Even Jupiter nods, he jokes, to cover his mistake, but his laugh sounds hollow as an empty amphora. The forum's afternoon crowd includes a traveling philosopher who's attracted a small audience. He lectures about stoic acceptance of fate while sweat beads on his forehead despite the cooling breeze. We cannot control the gods' whims, he proclaims, only our response to them. A listener asks about earthquakes. The philosopher's answer becomes a rambling discourse on divine displeasure that convinces no one, least of all himself. Children play knuckle bones near the fountain, their game punctuated by small tremors that send the dice skittering across uneven stones. They've adapted their rules to account for the shaking ground. Earthquake points for rolls that scatter during tremors. Kids adapt to anything. It's adults who cling to dangerous normalcy. A wine shop owner offers free tastings of his Vesuvius vintage, grapes grown on the mountain slopes where volcanic soil creates exceptional flavor. You sample the wine, noting its unusual mineral aftertaste. Secret ingredient, he winks, unaware that his secret ingredient is slowly building toward the most catastrophic wine tasting event in history. Historians still argue whether any Pompeians recognized the warning signs for what they truly were, but evidence suggests most interpreted the increasing seismic activity as typical regional earthquakes rather than volcanic precursors. The city had rebuilt after the devastating earthquake of 62 CE. They'd survived worse shaking before. As afternoon shadows lengthen, you notice more people glancing skyward, though none voice their growing unease aloud. The ground beneath your feet doesn't just shake, it convulses. At exactly 1:00 p.m. on this August 24th, Vesuvius decides to remind the world why mountains shouldn't be trusted. You're haggling over the price of lamp oil when the earth splits open like a rotten fig, swallowing the vendor's entire stall in a single hungry gulp. The sound isn't what you'd expect from the end of the world. Not a roar, but a deep, wet crack that seems to come from the planet's bowels. The eruption column shoots skyward with the force of 100,000 atomic bombs, though you lack that particular reference point. To you, it looks like the gods have decided to build a tower to heaven, using nothing but ash and fury. The column rises faster than an eagle's flight, punching through clouds that scatter like startled sheep. Within minutes, it reaches heights that would make modern meteorologists weep with terror, nearly 20 miles straight up, where the air is so thin that even eagles fear to tread. Panic spreads through the forum faster than gossip at a gladiator orgy. A fruit vendor abandons his cart, pomegranates rolling across marble like severed heads. Children cry for mother, who stand frozen, staring at the impossible sight of their peaceful mountain transformed into a gateway to Hades. You remember that crocodile dung sunscreen from this morning's bath seems rather pointless now, considering you're about to be exfoliated by volcanic debris. The sound hits next, a thunderclap that makes Jupiter's best storms sound like whispered prayers. Windows shatter throughout the city, glass raining down like crystalline tears. A priest of Apollo drops his ceremonial cup, the bronze, clanging against stone steps as wine spreads like blood across sacred ground. His face has gone the color of old parchment, eyes wide as dinner plates. You watch a flock of flamingos. Yes, flamingos lived in Campania's marshes, wheel overhead in confused spirals before fleeing toward the sea. Smart birds. A dog howls somewhere in the distance, that same "I've smelled death before" sound from this morning. Except now, death isn't just a scent on the wind. It's a towering column of superheated rock fragments ascending toward the heavens. The eruption column begins to spread at its peak, forming what modern volcanologists call an umbrella cloud. To you, it resembles a massive stone pine tree, its canopy blocking out the sun and casting Pompeii into an eerie twilight. The temperature drops noticeably as the shadow falls across the city, though you suspect this cooling trend won't last long. A merchant tries to secure his goods, lashing down amphorae filled with garum, while ash begins to dust his shoulders like dandruff from the gods. "Just a bit of mountain weather," he mutters, though his hands shake worse than autumn leaves in a hurricane. His denial would be admirable if it weren't so catastrophically misguided. Historians still argue whether the initial eruption caught everyone completely off guard, or if some residents had already begun evacuating based on the morning's seismic activity. Archaeological evidence suggests many people were going about their normal routines when Vesuvius exploded, bread still baking in ovens, meals half eaten on tables, games of dice abandoned mid-throw. The first pumice stones begin their deadly descent, starting small as pebbles, but growing larger with each passing minute. They bounce off rooftops with sounds like hail, except hail doesn't glow red hot or punch holes through terracotta tiles. You duck under a portico as a chunk the size of a chicken egg shatters against the spot where your head was moments before. The mountain has spoken, and its message is simple. Run. The world narrows to the hiss and clatter of falling ash. You squint upward, eyes stinging, as the sky transforms from a lazy blue to a swirling soup of gray and black. Pumice stones rain down, first like hail, then like a storm of angry gods, flinging their pebbles at the city. Roof tiles shatter, sending shards skittering across the streets. You dart from awning to awning, feeling the heat of each stone as it bounces and sizzles on the cobbles. The air thickens with dust. Every breath scours your throat, and you taste grit with every swallow. You tie a scrap of cloth over your mouth, an old trick you picked up from your uncle, who claimed it kept out the worst of the market stench. Now it's your only shield against the choking clouds. The world is shrinking, the familiar city vanishing beneath a relentless downpour of ash. You pass a bakery where loaves still bake in the oven, abandoned mid-rise. The baker's tools lie scattered, and the scent of burning bread mingles with the acrid tang of sulfur. You wonder, with a dark chuckle, if tomorrow's breakfast will be extra crispy. Historians still argue whether the suddenness of the ashfall left people no time to react, or if some managed to grab a few precious belongings before fleeing. The evidence is as patchy as the city's now collapsing rooftops. A neighbor's parrot, usually a squawking menace, sits silent in its cage, feathers puffed and eyes wide. Even the animals know something isn't right. You remember the merchant's camels from earlier, how they refuse to budge. Maybe the birds and beasts are the real oracles here, not the priests with their trembling hands and broken omens. You stumble past a statue of Venus, her marble face dusted gray. Someone has tied a scarf around her neck, as if the goddess herself needs protection from the ash. The scarf flutters in the hot wind, a tiny act of defiance against the mountain's wrath. You almost laugh, but the sound catches in your throat, swallowed by the roar of stones pelting the city. A group of slaves huddles under a collapsed awning, clutching whatever valuables they could grab: silver spoons, a child's doll, a battered bronze mirror. One of them whispers a prayer to Mercury, god of travelers and thieves. "Get us out, fleet-footed one," he begs, voice muffled by the ash. You nod in silent agreement. If ever there was a time for divine intervention, it's now. The streets are chaos. Some people run, dodging falling debris, while others freeze in doorways, paralyzed by fear or disbelief. You see a family trying to coax their elderly grandmother down the steps, her cane tapping a frantic rhythm. She pauses, looks back at her home, and sighs. A sound that somehow carries above the din. You wonder if she's saying goodbye or simply trying to remember where she left her favorite comb. A stray dog dashes past, tail tucked, eyes wild. It disappears into an alley, leaving only paw prints in the thickening ash. You think of the flamingos from earlier, their pink wings bright against the darkening sky. Maybe they'll make it to safety. Maybe you will too, if you keep moving. Quirky fact for the night. Some Pompeians used bits of volcanic pumice as soap and exfoliant long before volcanic skincare became a spa day trend. You can't help but smirk. Tonight, everyone's getting the deluxe treatment, whether they want it or not. You duck into a doorway as a particularly large stone crashes nearby, splintering wood and sending a shower of sparks into the street. The city is transforming before your eyes. Familiar landmarks vanishing beneath a growing blanket of gray. The once bustling streets are quieter now. The sounds of panic muffled by the relentless hiss of falling ash. You realize, with a chill, that Pompeii is being buried alive. One stone, one breath, one heartbeat at a time. You stand at the threshold of your home, torn between the urge to run and the instinct to hunker down. The street outside is a chaos of fleeing neighbors, their faces streaked with ash and panic. Some clutch bundles of clothes or family treasures. Others carry nothing but the terror in their eyes. The air is so thick with falling pumice that you can barely see across the street. It's like walking through a snowstorm, except every flake is a tiny, burning stone. Inside, your family debates in frantic whispers. Your father insists you stay. The house is sturdy. The gods will protect you. Your mother wants to run, her hands shaking as she tries to pack bread and dried figs into a basket. Your little brother, usually so brave, clings to your tunic and begs not to be left behind. You're the tiebreaker, the reluctant leader in a disaster no one understands. Historians still argue whether more people survived by fleeing or by sheltering indoors. Some evidence suggests that those who tried to escape early had a better chance, at least until the ashfall made the streets impassable. Others believe the thick stone walls of Pompeii's houses offered some protection against the initial onslaught, at least for a while. You weigh your options, heart pounding in your ears. You remember the neighbor's advice. If the mountain ever blows, run for the sea. But the road to the harbor is already clogged with people and animals, all pushing in the same desperate direction. The city gates are narrow and the crowd is thick. You hear someone shout that the bridge over the Sarno River has collapsed, and a wave of dread washes over you. The escape routes are vanishing as fast as the daylight. A friend bursts through your door, face smeared with soot. The amphitheater's roof is caving in, he gasps. People are trapped inside. You glance at your family, then at the sky, now a swirling mass of black and orange. The mountain's roar is relentless, punctuated by the crash of falling stones and the distant screams of the desperate. You make a decision, one you'll second guess for the rest of your probably short life. You grab your brother's hand and urge your family toward the back door, away from the main streets. You hope the side alleys will be less crowded less dangerous. The ash is ankle deep already, and every step is a struggle. You wrap wet cloths around your faces, hoping to filter out the worst of the dust. The world smells of sulfur and fear. You pass a neighbor's house where the family has chosen to stay inside. They wave from the window, faces pale but determined. "We'll wait it out," the father says, trying to sound brave. You nod, but deep down, you wonder if any wall is thick enough to keep out a mountain's fury. A quirky tidbit: some Pompeians believed that sleeping with a laurel wreath under your pillow would protect you from evil spirits. You consider grabbing the one from your family shrine, but decide you need speed more than supernatural backup tonight. The streets are a surreal obstacle course. You dodge a toppled statue of Mercury, his winged sandals now buried in ash. A cart, abandoned by its owner, blocks your path, wheels spinning uselessly. You clamber over it, helping your brother and mother, your hands raw from gripping hot, abrasive stone. You catch sight of a group sheltering beneath a sturdy archway, sharing water and whispered prayers. One woman clutches a tiny dog, its fur caked with ash. The animal shivers, but its eyes are alert, scanning the chaos for threats. You wonder if it knows something you don't. The sky darkens further, the sun reduced to a faint, blood-red smudge. The air grows hotter, the ashfall heavier. You realize you can't keep this up for long. Every breath is a battle, every step a gamble. You glance back at your home, now half buried and unrecognizable. Part of you wants to turn back, to hide in the familiar safety of stone walls. But you keep moving, driven by the hope that somewhere ahead there's a way out. Historians still debate whether the people of Pompeii truly understood the scale of the disaster unfolding around them. Some say they believe the gods were angry, others that they thought it was just another earthquake. You don't know what to believe anymore. All you know is that you have to keep moving, one agonizing step at a time. You stumble through the thickening ash, your world reduced to a few feet of visibility and the desperate grip of your brother's hand. The air is hot, unnaturally hot, as if someone has opened the door to a giant oven. You cough, the taste of sulfur burning your throat, and realize the falling stones have grown lighter but more frequent, peppering your back and shoulders with stinging blows. The city's familiar sounds, vendors, laughter, the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer are gone, replaced by the hiss of ash and the distant, monstrous rumble of Vesuvius. You duck into a doorway to catch your breath, pressing your family close. The stones have given way to a fine, powdery ash that settles on your skin and clothes, painting everyone the same ghostly gray. You'd laugh at the fashion statement if your lungs weren't on fire. Somewhere nearby, a roof collapses with a thunderous crash, sending up a fresh plume of dust. You flinch, heart racing, and squeeze your brother's hand tighter. Night falls early, the sun blotted out by the churning cloud overhead. The city is plunged into an unnatural twilight, shadows stretching and twisting in the flickering light of torches and oil lamps. You can barely see the faces around you, but you sense the fear etched into every line. Someone tries to start a prayer, but their voice cracks and fades. It's as if the gods themselves have abandoned Pompeii. Then comes the first wave of true terror, the pyroclastic surge. You feel it before you see it, a sudden, suffocating heat that presses against your skin, followed by a wind that whips ash and debris down the street. The ground trembles, and a low, guttural roar rises from the mountain. You look up just in time to see a boiling cloud of gas and rock racing down the slope, hugging the ground like a living thing. You shout for your family to run, but the air is so thick you can barely move. The heat is unbearable, searing your face and arms. You duck behind a stone wall, dragging your brother and mother with you. The surge passes overhead, a wave of invisible death that scorches everything in its path. You feel the heat on your skin, the hairs on your arms curling and crisping. For a moment, you think you're done for, but the wall holds, and the surge moves on, leaving you gasping and shaking in its wake. Historians still argue whether the first pyroclastic flows reached Pompeii in the evening or later in the night. But you know one thing for certain: nothing in your life has prepared you for this. The city is transformed, streets buried under layers of ash and pumice, buildings reduced to skeletal frames. Fires break out here and there, fed by the superheated air and the dry timbers of abandoned homes. You remember a rumor from the baths. Someone claimed the mountain was home to Vulcan himself, the god of fire and forge. Maybe he's finally decided to reclaim his workshop, you think, a bitter smile twisting your lips. You always preferred Neptune, anyway. At least the sea doesn't try to cook you alive. A quirky tidbit floats through your mind. Some Romans believed that wearing a red coral amulet could protect you from lightning and evil spirits. You clutch the amulet around your neck, half hoping it might work against volcanic fire. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. You huddle with your family in the darkness, listening to the city groan and crack around you. The air is thick with the smell of burning wood and flesh, a scent you'll never forget. Somewhere nearby, a child cries for their mother, the sound muffled by the ash. You want to help, but you can barely help yourself. You realize, with a cold clarity, that the worst is yet to come. The mountain is far from finished, and you are trapped in its shadow, waiting for the next wave of terror to sweep through the city. The night stretches on, each minute an eternity, measured by the shuddering ground and the relentless hiss of falling ash. You crouch behind the battered wall, your family pressed close, every breath a struggle against the suffocating heat and grit. The darkness is absolute, broken only by the occasional flicker of firelight as another building succumbs to the weight of ash or the lick of flames. Pompeii is no longer a city, but a labyrinth of shadows and ruin, every familiar landmark erased beneath the mountain's fury. Suddenly, a new roar builds, a sound deeper and more terrifying than before. The earth shakes violently, tossing you sideways. You hear the distant, unmistakable rush of another pyroclastic flow, a monstrous wave of superheated gas and rock surging down Vesuvius's flanks. This is no gentle blanket of ash. It's a freight train of death, moving faster than a galloping horse and hotter than a blacksmith's forge. Historians still argue whether there were 17 distinct surges or more, but to you, it feels like an endless onslaught. You clutch your brother's hand so tightly he winces, but neither of you lets go. The heat intensifies, and you can feel the air itself burning your lungs. The wall at your back grows warm, then hot, as if the mountain's breath is seeping through the stone. You press your face into your sleeve, desperate to filter out the worst of the fumes. Your mother murmurs a prayer to Vesta, goddess of hearth and home, her words trembling with fear and hope. The first surge passes, leaving behind a silence so profound it rings in your ears. You risk a glance over the wall. The street is unrecognizable, buried beneath a thick, steaming layer of ash and debris. Shapes that might be people or might be statues lie half buried, frozen in mid-motion. You look away quickly, heart pounding. A quirky fact drifts through your mind. Some Romans believed that the spirits of the dead could be appeased with offerings of milk and honey. You wish you had some to spare, but all you have is the taste of ash and the memory of sweeter days. The ground trembles again, a warning that the next surge is on its way. You huddle closer, trying to shield your brother and mother with your own body. The heat grows unbearable, sweat pouring down your face and stinging your eyes. You hear the surge before you see it, a low rumbling growl that builds to a deafening roar. This one is faster, hotter, more violent. The wall shudders, and for a moment you fear it will collapse, burying you alive. You survive, barely. The surge passes, leaving the city even more broken, more silent. You cough, choking on the thick, acrid air. Your brother whimpers, and you squeeze his hand, whispering words of comfort you barely believe. The night is far from over, and you know more surges are coming. The mountain is relentless, its anger undiminished. Somewhere nearby, you hear the faint sound of singing. A lullaby, maybe, or a prayer. You cling to the sound, letting it anchor you in the chaos. The city is filled with such moments, small acts of courage, of love, of hope. Even as the world ends, people find ways to comfort each other. You remember the philosopher from earlier, preaching stoic acceptance in the Forum. You wonder what he would say now, as the city is battered by wave after wave of destruction. Maybe he would remind you that fate is inescapable, that all you can do is endure. Or maybe, like you, he would simply hold his loved ones close and hope for morning. Historians still debate whether the surges came in quick succession or with agonizing pauses between. To you, time has lost all meaning. There is only the next breath, the next heartbeat, the next surge. You close your eyes and pray for dawn, for an end to the darkness, for a miracle. But the mountain is not done, not yet. You're not sure when the night ends and morning begins, if it begins at all. The world outside your shelter is still black as pitch, the sun a memory lost behind layers of ash and cloud. You feel the city's heartbeat slowing, the frantic cries and shouts fading into exhausted silence. Every muscle aches, your eyes sting, and your mouth is so dry it feels lined with sandpaper. You'd give anything for a sip of clean water, maybe even a cup of that terrible vinegar wine. Then, as if Vesuvius has been saving its grand finale for the dawn, the ground shakes with a violence that dwarfs everything before. It's 7:07 a.m., though you don't know the hour, only that the air has shifted, the darkness somehow heavier. You hear it first, a deep, rolling thunder that grows and grows until it's all you can hear, all you can think about. The wall at your back trembles, dust sifting down into your hair. You brace yourself, clutching your family, every instinct screaming that this is it. A sudden, blinding heat slams into the city. The seventh and deadliest pyroclastic surge barrels down the mountain, moving at hurricane speed, hotter than anything you've ever imagined. The air itself turns lethal, filled with superheated gas, ash, and pulverized rock. You don't even have time to scream. The surge sweeps through Pompeii, flattening walls, shattering doors, and incinerating everything in its path. It's over in seconds. You open your eyes. Miraculously, you're still here, shielded by the thick stone wall that now radiates heat like a kiln. The world is utterly transformed. Where there were houses, there are now mounds of ash. Where there were streets, only gray dunes remain. You try to call out, but your voice is lost in the choking air. You stumble to your feet, pulling your brother and mother with you. The heat is unbearable, but you have to move. You pick your way through the ruins, each step a gamble as the ground shifts beneath you. The city is silent, save for the distant, ongoing rumble of Vesuvius. You see shapes half buried in ash, some curled in sleep, others frozen in desperate flight. Historians still argue whether the people died instantly or lingered for a few agonizing moments. But the evidence suggests this surge was mercilessly swift. A quirky, haunting fact. The heat of the surge was so intense that it caused people's brains to boil, and even, in some cases, to explode. Not exactly the spa day you signed up for, but at least you're not worrying about taxes anymore. You pass what used to be the Forum, now a wasteland of toppled columns and buried statues. The Temple of Jupiter is gone, replaced by a jagged mound of stone and ash. You remember the priests and their trembling hands, the philosophers' stoic words. None of it matters now. The gods, if they're watching, are silent. You spot a dog curled up in the street, its body perfectly preserved in the ash. It looks like it's sleeping, waiting for its master to return. You pause, a lump in your throat, and reach out to touch its fur, only to find it crumbles at your touch, turning to powder. The sky is still dark, the sun a faint reddish glow behind the clouds of ash. You realize you're not alone. Other survivors stagger through the ruins, faces blank with shock. You exchange glances, a silent acknowledgement of shared fate. There's no time for grief, only survival. Historians still debate whether anyone could have survived the final surge if they'd been in the right place at the right time. Maybe a few did, by sheer luck or stubbornness. You cling to hope, even as the city around you crumbles. You move forward, step by step, through the gray silence of dawn. Pompeii is gone, but you are still here, for now. You wander through what's left of Pompeii, the city now a ghostly wasteland every surface blanketed in ash so thick it muffles your footsteps. The air is hot and heavy, each breath a struggle, but you keep moving, because stopping means surrendering to the mountain's wrath. Around you, survivors stagger like sleepwalkers, faces smeared gray, eyes wide and unseeing. No one speaks. There's nothing left to say. You pass the shell of the bakery, its oven still warm beneath the ash. The loaves inside are now stone-hard relics, frozen in time. A dog's paw print marks the surface of the gray dust, a fleeting reminder of life amid the devastation. You think of the baker, always up before dawn, and wonder if he made it out, or if he's now part of the city's silent history. The sky is a swirling soup of darkness, an ember-red glow. Somewhere Vesuvius still rumbles, sending up fresh plumes of ash and gas. You hear a distant crash, the collapse of another roof, or maybe the fall of a statue. Each sound feels final, a punctuation mark on the city's last sentence. You find a group of survivors huddled in the remains of a portico. They share water and what little food they manage to grab. A handful of figs, a crust of bread, a flask of sour wine. You join them, grateful for company, even in this nightmare. Someone tries to count the hours since the eruption began, but time has lost all meaning. Day and night blur together, the sun nothing more than a rumor behind the ash-choked sky. Historians still argue whether the eruption lasted 18 hours or longer. Some say the worst was over by midday, others that the mountain kept spewing ash and gas into the next evening. You only know that it feels endless, each moment stretched thin by fear and exhaustion. A quirky tidbit: some Pompeians, desperate for fresh air, tried to dig tunnels through the ash to escape their homes. You spot the collapsed entrance of one such tunnel, its wooden supports charred and broken. The effort is both heartbreaking and oddly inspiring. A final, stubborn refusal to give up. You move on, searching for any sign of hope. The forum is unrecognizable, its grand columns toppled, statues buried up to their shoulders. You remember the bustling market, the laughter of children, the arguments over garum prices. Now, the only voices are whispers, prayers, and the occasional sob. You catch sight of a woman cradling her child, both coated in ash, their faces serene in sleep. You realize, with a pang, that they're not sleeping at all. The city is filled with such moments, lives interrupted, stories unfinished. You force yourself to keep moving, to look for the living among the dead. The heat grows worse as the day drags on. The air shimmers, and you feel dizzy, lightheaded. You find shade beneath the remains of a villa's portico, the mosaic floor still visible beneath a thin layer of ash. You trace the patterns with your finger, remembering the parties that once filled this space with music and laughter. A group of men argues quietly about what to do next. Some want to wait for rescue, convinced the Roman authorities will send help. Others insist on trying to reach the sea, even though the roads are buried and the river bridge is gone. Historians still debate whether any organized escape attempts succeeded, or if the survivors simply scattered in every direction, each hoping to outrun the mountain's fury. You make your choice. There's no going back. You gather your family, nod to the others, and set off toward the edge of the city, following the faint hope that something, anything, lies beyond the ash. The city fades behind you, swallowed by the mountain's shadow. You don't look back. You trudge through the outskirts of Pompeii. The landscape around you transformed into a gray, undulating desert. Each step kicks up a puff of ash, coating your sandals and clinging to your skin. The city behind you is silent, its final moments preserved in eerie stillness. You pass what used to be a vineyard, now just rows of buried vines. The grapes cook to raisins beneath the suffocating blanket. As you pick your way through the ruins, you notice something strange. Here and there, the shapes of bodies frozen in their last moments. Some are curled protectively around loved ones, others caught mid-stride, as if fleeing could outrun the mountain's wrath. The ash has preserved them perfectly, creating ghostly casts of Pompeii's final day. You pause, awed and unsettled, as you realize you're walking through a city-sized time capsule. A quirky fact floats into your mind. Centuries from now, archaeologists will pour plaster into these voids, creating hauntingly lifelike statues from the spaces left behind by vanished flesh. It's a strange comfort knowing that your terror and hope, your very pose, might one day be studied by people who can't even imagine what bread fresh from Modestus's oven tasted like. You spot a dog twisted in a desperate leap, its collar still visible beneath the ash. Nearby, a couple holds each other in a final embrace. The details are so vivid. The folds of a tunic, the imprint of a sandal, even the lines of a child's tiny hand pressed into a mother's side. Historians still argue whether these forms are the result of a single, catastrophic moment or the slow accumulation of ash and heat. Either way, the effect is chilling. Pompeii's last day, captured forever in a gallery of loss. You wander into a villa, its walls still standing, though the roof has collapsed. The frescoes are faded but visible. Scenes of Bacchus and Ariadne frozen mid-revel. On a table, a bowl of figs sits untouched, a loaf of bread half eaten. You touch the crust, hard as stone. Time has stopped here, the ordinary made extraordinary by disaster. You remember the philosopher in the Forum, his words about accepting fate. It's easier said than done, you think, as you step over the remains of a mosaic floor. The tiles cool beneath your feet. The city is a paradox, utterly destroyed, yet perfectly preserved. Every detail tells a story, every room a snapshot of life interrupted. A group of survivors gathers in the atrium, their faces blank with shock. You join them, grateful for the company, even if words fail. Someone finds a jug of wine, miraculously unbroken. You pass it around, the taste sharp and earthy, a reminder of normalcy in a world turned upside down. You hear the distant rumble of Vesuvius, a reminder that the danger isn't over. The ash is still falling, though lighter now, settling gently over the ruins like a shroud. You wonder what will become of Pompeii, if anyone will remember the city, or if it will vanish beneath the earth, forgotten by history. Historians still debate whether the preservation of Pompeii was a miracle or a curse. The ash saved the city's secrets, but at a terrible cost. You look around at the faces, both living and preserved, and feel the weight of memory pressing in. You find yourself hoping that someday someone will uncover these ruins and understand what happened here, that your story and the stories of everyone you loved won't be lost to the ash. You drift through the centuries now, the ash settling thicker and thicker until Pompeii disappears from the world's memory. The city lies entombed, a secret beneath the fields and vineyards of Campania. Time moves strangely here. Seasons pass, empires rise and fall, and the world above changes, while you and your neighbors remain frozen in that final, desperate day. The land heals over the wound. Grass and wild flowers root in the volcanic soil. Animals wander over the buried streets, and farmers plow fields, unaware of the city beneath their feet. You imagine the stories told by locals, tales of ghosts, of buried treasure, of gods angered by forgotten sacrifices. Sometimes a plow strikes something hard, a mosaic tile, a marble column, a bit of pottery. The farmer shrugs, pockets the odd coin, and moves on. The city slumbers on, undisturbed. A quirky tidbit. For centuries, people believed the buried ruins were the remains of a city called La Civita, not realizing they were walking over the lost Pompeii. Some even thought the area was cursed, haunted by the restless dead. Historians still argue whether any ancient records hinted at the true fate of Pompeii, or if the city's story was simply swallowed by the earth and forgotten. Occasionally, earthquakes shake the land, but Pompeii remains hidden. Rainwater seeps down, preserving frescoes and mosaics in a mineral embrace. The bones of the dead rest undisturbed, their final moments locked in the embrace of ash and time. You wonder if any souls linger, watching the centuries pass, waiting for someone to remember their names. Above, life continues. The Roman Empire crumbles, replaced by new kingdoms and new languages. The world changes. Roads are built, cities rise and fall, and all the while, Pompeii waits. You imagine the city's voice, whispering beneath the soil, telling its story to anyone who will listen. Centuries pass. Medieval travelers wander the region, marveling at the strange stones and ancient artifacts that surface after heavy rains. Some take pieces home as souvenirs, never guessing the tragedy buried just below their feet. The city becomes a rumor, a legend, a ghost. You drift through the ages, watching as the world forgets and remembers, forgets and remembers again. The city's silence is profound, but not empty. Pompeii is a time capsule, a message in a bottle sent across the ages, waiting for someone to open it. A farmer digs a well and uncovers a marble statue. He sells it to a passing nobleman who displays it in his villa as a curiosity. More discoveries follow. Bits of fresco, fragments of pottery, coins stamped with the faces of long-dead emperors. The whispers grow louder. What lies beneath the fields of Campania? What city sleeps in the ash? Historians still debate whether the first true rediscovery was an accident or the result of careful searching. Either way, the world above is about to change forever. The city's long sleep is ending, and soon the whispers of Pompeii will become a chorus. You rest, for now, beneath the ash, knowing that your story is not lost. One day, the world will dig deep enough to find you, and the city will wake once more. The earth shifts again, but this time it is not Vesuvius's wrath. It is the hand of man, curious and relentless. You feel the vibrations of pickaxes striking stone, the scrape of shovels against centuries-old ash. The city is waking slowly as archaeologists peel back the layers of time. Walls emerge from the dust, frescoes bloom in color once more, and the streets you once walked become pathways for new explorers. You watch as graffiti scrawled on walls centuries ago reveals the humor and heartbreak of Pompeii's residents. A lover's quarrel etched into plaster, a gladiator's boast, a baker's complaint about bad bread. These voices from the past speak to you across the ages. It's a reminder that life, even in the shadow of disaster, was full of ordinary moments. A quirky tidbit: archaeologists have uncovered ancient graffiti that includes political slogans, jokes, and even rude insults, proof that Pompeians had a sense of humor not unlike ours. You chuckle, imagining the debates and banter that filled the city's taverns. You witness the discovery of teeth and bones, their DNA offering clues about diet, health, and even the diseases that plagued the population. Science breathes new life into the dead, piecing together stories from fragments of skulls and shards of pottery. The city is no longer just a ruin. It is a living archive of human experience. Historians still argue about how much we can truly know about Pompeii's final hours. Was the city's destruction a sudden catastrophe or a drawn-out nightmare? The evidence is fragmented, much like the city itself, but each new find adds a brushstroke to the portrait of a vibrant, complex society caught in the grip of nature's fury. You see the plaster casts of victims, men, women, children, captured in their last moments, their faces frozen in terror, resignation, or even a final embrace. It's a haunting tableau, a reminder of the fragility of life and the suddenness of death. The excavation uncovers the city's shops, homes, and public baths, revealing the daily rhythms of Pompeii. You walk through a bakery, still filled with baked goods, turned to stone. You pass the amphitheater where gladiators once fought, the graffiti on its walls telling stories of triumph and defeat. You feel a connection to the people of Pompeii, their joys and fears echoing through time. Their voices rise from the ash, whispering lessons about resilience, community, and the unpredictability of fate. The city's rediscovery sparks a renewed fascination with Roman life and culture. Museums fill with artifacts, scholars debate interpretations, and tourists flock to walk the ancient streets. Pompeii becomes a bridge between past and present, a testament to to human endurance and the power of memory. You watch as the city's secrets unfold, layer by layer, revealing the whispers of Pompeii to a new generation. The mountain's fury may have silenced the city, but its story lives on, louder than ever. You wander the newly unearthed streets, now bustling with scholars, tourists, and dreamers, all eager to touch the past. The city's wounds are open for study, its secrets laid bare beneath the Mediterranean sun. You marvel at how the world has changed, how people from every corner of the globe come to walk these ancient stones, to peer into the lives of those who vanished in a single day. You pause at a display of household items, a bronze lamp, a child's wooden toy, a jar of preserved olives. Each object tells a story, each fragment a window into a world both familiar and strange. You realize how much you have in common with these long-gone Pompeians, their hopes, their routines, their need for comfort and connection. The city's tragedy is not just a lesson in disaster, but a mirror reflecting what it means to be human. A quirky tidbit: among the ruins, archaeologists found a loaf of carbonized bread stamped with the baker's name, proof that even in the 1st century, people cared about branding. You can't help but smirk, imagining a Roman influencer snapping amphora selfies for maximum likes. You listen as guides and historians debate what Pompeii's fate teaches us. Some say it's a warning about ignoring nature's signs. Others see it as a testament to resilience and community. Historians still argue whether the city's residents could have survived if they'd recognized the danger sooner, or if fate had already sealed their doom. You drift into the House of the Faun, its mosaic floors glimmering with scenes of myth and revelry. You picture the laughter that once filled these rooms, the music, the clatter of cups and sandals. The silence now is heavy, but not empty. It's filled with memory, with the echo of lives lived to the fullest, right up to the end. You pass a wall covered in graffiti, messages of love, jokes, even advertisements for gladiator games. The voices of the past are everywhere, irrepressible and bright, refusing to be silenced by disaster. The city's final day is preserved not just in ash and stone, but in the words and marks its people left behind. You pause at a cast of a young girl, her features gentle in repose. You wonder what she dreamed about, what her favorite game was, whether she liked honey cakes or figs. In this moment, the distance between you and her collapses. You are both just people, caught in the unpredictable currents of history. A group of school children passes by, their teacher explaining how the eruption changed the world's understanding of volcanoes. You smile at their wide-eyed wonder, their questions tumbling out faster than the guide can answer. You hope they remember this lesson, not just about volcanoes, but about the importance of paying attention, of caring for one another, of cherishing every ordinary day. You realize that Pompeii's greatest gift isn't the treasure or the art, but the reminder that life is fragile, precious, and fleeting. The city's tragedy is a lesson written in ash, a whisper to the living to hold each other close, to laugh and love, to savor every sunrise. You leave the ruins as the sun sets, the sky painted gold and crimson over Vesuvius. The mountain is quiet now, its fury spent, but its lesson lingers. You carry it with you, a gentle weight, as you step back into your own world. You linger at the edge of the ruins, letting the last rays of sunlight warm your face as you gaze back at Pompeii's silent streets. The city is quiet, but not empty. The air hums with the echoes of laughter, the clatter of sandals, the distant bark of a dog. You close your eyes and listen, letting the whispers of the past drift around you like a gentle breeze. You remember the faces you've seen, both the living and the preserved. Each one tells a story. The baker who stamped his bread, the gladiator who boasted in graffiti, the mother who shielded her child from the ash. Their lives, so ordinary and yet so extraordinary, are now woven into the fabric of history. You realize that Pompeii's tragedy is not just a tale of loss, but a testament to the resilience of memory. A quirky fact surfaces as you wander. In the centuries after the eruption, local farmers used volcanic ash as fertilizer, making the fields around Pompeii some of the most fertile in Italy. Life, it seems, always finds a way to return, even after disaster. Historians still argue whether the city's preservation was a blessing or a curse, but you know that the lessons left behind are invaluable. You walk past the remains of the forum, the columns casting long shadows across the ash. The city feels at peace now, its secrets revealed, its stories told. You sense a kind of closure, not just for the people of Pompeii, but for yourself as well. The journey through this lost city has left you changed, more aware of the fragility and beauty of every moment. You pause one last time before leaving, placing your hand on a sun-warmed stone. You whisper a silent goodbye, a promise to remember. The city, once buried and forgotten, now lives on in your memory, and in the memories of everyone who walks these streets, listens to these stories, and feels the weight of history settle gently on their shoulders. As you step away from the ruins, you carry with you the whispers of Pompeii, reminders to cherish the present, to learn from the past, and to greet the future with open eyes and an open heart. Now, as the echoes of Pompeii's final day fade, let your mind drift gently away from ash and stone, from the weight of history and the urgency of survival. Picture the city at peace, blanketed softly beneath the earth, its memories safe and undisturbed. The mountain is quiet now, its fury spent, and the world above has moved on. Fields green, flowers blooming, the air sweet with the promise of new beginnings. Let your breath slow, each inhale drawing in calm, each exhale releasing the tension of the journey. Imagine the gentle hush of volcanic dust settling, the coolness of ancient mosaic floors beneath your feet, the faint scent of figs and honey drifting through the air. The worries of the day, like the ash of Pompeii, settle and fade, leaving only a deep, restful stillness. You are safe, far from the heat and chaos, wrapped in the comfort of your own bed. The whispers of the past have quieted, their lessons absorbed, their stories tucked gently into the corners of your mind. Know that just as Pompeii's people are remembered, Your own moments, big and small, are precious and worthy of care. Allow yourself to rest now, to let go of the day's burdens. The city sleeps, and so can you. With each breath, you drift further from the ruins, floating softly into dreams where the sun always rises, and every ending is simply the beginning of something new. Good night, traveler. May your sleep be peaceful, your dreams gentle, and your heart light.